Hi.
How does that sound go?
It goes like this. It goes yes. Hey. Hi.
No, which one is that? Is that Tulpa? No, that's not Tulpa.
Sammy. Sammy. Sammy says, "Welcome to Cinema Bias," and also hi, and also I love you. Hi guys. Hi. Welcome to Cinema Bias. Sorry that I'm so out of frame. I've been moving some stuff around, and right now I have to figure out how to get this camera set up so I don't look like I'm just always to the right. We have a little bit of a scheduling announcement change today because we were supposed to do today as a double header of Superman, the 1978 Richard Donner film, as well as Superman 2, the sequel that was directed ostensibly by Richard Lester, but we were going to watch the Donner cut of it. But because of scheduling and time constraints, and because we had a little bit of confusion about which version we were watching, this is actually going to be Superman, the doubleheader part 1. So we're going to just do the Superman, the movie today, Superman, the motion picture. And then next Tuesday, we're going to be doing Superman 2, the Donner cut. So yeah, just wanted to put that out on top in case anybody was like really like looking forward to me talking about bald Lex Luthor. That's not who we're going to be talking about today. It's the one with hair.
But I'm a little sad that we're not going to be talking about Superman 2, just because I really enjoy Superman 2 quite a bit. The later version.
Enjoying it. I was really. I have to admit, I was the one that didn't even have a chance to finish it like all the way through the Donner cut today. But I was really, really enjoying what I was seeing. Oh, but before we get started, Alex, yeah, that's on me. Let's play our little intro video. Hey, and we have a wild Eric behind us. Yeah. Welcome to Cinema Bias, guys. So yeah, like I mentioned today, we're just going to be doing part 1 of our Superman doubleheader, which is literally just called not Superman, the regular movie. And I do have to say up the top, I don't think I watched the Donner. Like, I don't know if there's like a Donner cut of this movie because it was directed by Donner. I didn't watch the extended version. I just watched regular Superman, the movie, the one that we all know.
We can call this episode Cinema Bias Superman motion picture.
Motion picture part 1.
And then we're gonna just call it Cinema Bias the motion picture. And then next week, we'll call it Cinema Bias 2.
Right, Cinema Bias 2, and then we'll just do colon the Drew cut. So hi, how are you, Alex? How are you doing? It's been a hot minute.
I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen each other, even though it's only been a week, which is kind of funny.
And ironically, this is the only show I'm currently doing right now, so we're actually getting the most amount of time.
It's been I mean, there's been a lot going on, a lot of stuff. My family just left today. They were here for the weekend, and so it was kind of fun to hang out with them, do a whole bunch of touristy stuff. And
what did you guys do? You guys went there? Hey, Sammy, come on. That's so funny. I saw my dad over the weekend for the first time in 2 years. That was crazy.
That is a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. So wow. So what did you guys do? Did you go to the monument? What did you?
Oh yeah, we went to the National Mall, which was a blast. Washington, Lincoln, all that good stuff. We wanted to check out the title base and to check out all the sakura blossoms and trees. Fun fact: I was also almost named Sakura. However, my mom's family couldn't pronounce it, so they went with Alex.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I guess it was way past the sakura, the cherry blossom season. Not season, but
I had no idea that was a word for cherry blossoms. Awesome.
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
I remember that was like a big thing because I grew up around Maryland, so like that was a huge thing. There was like that couple weeks where the cherry blossoms happened. Wasn't there? Thank you for your donation, Single. Yeah. For some reason, it didn't show up as a little alert box, but thank you for your donation, guys. Anyone can donate via streamlabs.com/VideoDrew or over in the comments via Super Chat. Make sure I'll make sure that that happens. I don't know what's going on with my dog tonight.
To help keep the lights on here, Cinema Bias. Also, I need to buy the Donner cut, so anything would be appreciated. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about this movie. I put some of my movie watching on hold for a little bit, so I could do stuff with family. So I'm excited to talk about movies again. I feel like it's been ages since I've actually talked about movies, which is fun.
Yeah. It's funny. I was talking to Nerd Chronic like earlier this week, and I was like, I feel like all I do is memorize movie data at this point. Like I just memorize what years movies come out. Like it's people. It's no secret to know in the Schmodown that like to be a player, like it's not even so much that you would even have time to watch all the movies. It's like in an effective use of time to just sit down and watch a bunch of movies. It's mostly about like just sitting down and studying. So it's nice to have this show where I can actually talk about films and like force myself to watch a couple movies and actually know what goes on in the plot. So it's good.
It's also really cool because I watched this actually for the first time, both of these movies for the first time several weeks ago. It was actually, I think it was right before Snyder Cut came out.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I watched Superman.
This is my Superman. This one's my Superman.
Exactly. And then I watched Superman Returns right after because that's supposed to be like the spiritual sequel, essentially, to Superman 2. And after watching it, I'm like, I concur. It makes sense in the timeline.
Is Superman 3 not canon, the one with Richard Pryor?
It totally is. But if you're going to be looking at the timeline, it's almost like an alternative timeline to Superman because Superman Returns is supposed to take place after. So if you look at the character lineup and everything, what the true intentions after watching Superman 2, apparently the original intentions was that Lex Luthor somehow tricked Superman into believing that he could find like a clone world of Krypton somewhere. And so Superman literally, he just left for like 5 years in search of Krypton in space.
Okay, so then we moved from the 70s to like the 90s. I've got to say, I have so much to say about this first movie, about how I feel about this Superman, a character that is fundamentally uninteresting to me. I think, like on a like just a basic level, I've always been uninterested by Superman. Like nothing about him like really appealed to me. But this movie, and I think especially next week when we talk about The Return, I just so enjoy Christopher Reeve as Superman. Like he is my Superman, and he's so good, and I really am excited to delve into it. So, yeah, why don't we talk a little bit about what this show is? Cinema Bias. Go ahead.
Well, just to kind of break it down, we're talking about our personal movie biases. So everyone, when it comes to watching movies, whether I realize it or not, whether it's conscious or not, we go into movies with our very different movie biases, whether it be for or against a certain genre, director, actor, whatever it may be, a vibe of a movie. Drew, have you ever watched a movie and be like, going into it right away, I'm definitely not going to vibe with this movie, therefore I don't want to watch it?
Can I be honest? I have learned in my adult life that I am such a prude. I never thought about that as like I never would have considered myself a prude until pretty recently when I realized that there's some movies where I'm just like, ugh. Like, I just hate it. Like, I hate certain kinds of, like, bro comedy. I hate certain kinds of, like, and then there's just, like, genres in general that it's really hard for me to get into, not because they're bad genres, but because they're, like, I don't like to watch suffering or pain or, like, a lot of people just, like, meditating on grief. So that takes out a lot of what we consider to be, like, Oscar-winning films and, like, dark, like, deep films because a lot of times they're meditations on suffering and grief and war and a lot of stuff. And I also don't like super loud movies. So in actuality, the fields of movies that I enjoy and can go into being like, I'm going to vibe with it. It's basically like Promising Young Woman and like 3 other films that I can just go and being like, I'm going to love this.
Yeah. It's but when the vibe is there, it's kind of fun. And I feel like it's kind of a rarity for a film fan, just like because we're fun people once we realize the vibe and we really like it, we're all in.
Yes. I'll give you an example. I love horror films. I think I love horror films. But last night I watched a movie called The Empty Man. And that movie started out with these kids like up on a ski slope, like up on like the mountains of what country in India somewhere. and they were just like getting trapped in a snowstorm, and like there's nothing horror necessarily going on yet in the movie, but I hated it. Like the moment that they got up on like on a really high mountain and like couldn't find their way out, I was like, no, I don't want to watch this. Like it makes me hashtag triggered. So you know, sometimes you have to force yourself to get out of your comfort zone. Hopefully not to Jakarta. Now I just remembered it was in Jakarta.
Well, one of my big movie biases while we're on this topic is that I have a hard time turning off my brain to a certain extent. And well, if I'm watching like Fast and Furious or Godzilla versus Kong, you go into a very specific mindset. You're not going into it the same mindset as Schindler's List.
I'm not sure, Alex. Have you read my new Avatar thread? I go into every movie with the exact same amount of like cynical, why is this happening?
Well, it depends on like it depends on certain different situation, because when I watched the first Godzilla film for the first time, going into it, I was like, holy shit. I knew it was a political film. I knew it was made as a direct reaction to World War II, essentially, and in Hiroshima, and the reaction to nuclear power and the atom bomb and everything at that time, and just the fear of this new science, essentially. And so I go into it knowing that, but then there was so much about it that I did not realize. Like that movie, like it was made in like 1952, only just a few years after the events of Hiroshima. And I was like, oh shit, this is like, whereas we saw.
They were like, this is a documentary about a giant lizard that might exist one day. Like,
it's so weird. I was just like, had an out of body experience watching it for the first time. But I understand it to a certain degree, absolutely.
Movie logic, to me, I think my biggest thing with movie logic is it has to hold up internally. Like, I don't care if you're saying there's like giant space aliens and a bunch of things going on, or like, but as long as it's consistent internal logic. Like, again, I was watching Avatar for the very first time, and like, I've just immediately was like, first of all, what the fuck is going on with their hair? This is body horror. This is horrifying. I don't understand why anyone liked this movie.
The weird.
Oh God, it's like just like tentacle porn. But then also I was like, wait, are these guys military, or are they private, like contracting ops that work for Giovanni Ribisi? Because like you would assume they're military because there's like a military dude there and he's like a colonel, but like it's not a military organization. And like that will just drive me nuts. Like throughout I was just like having a really hard time watching the rest of the film, like getting distracted by that kind of issue.
It's actually funny you say that, because I personally have known quite a few military contractors and specialists along those lines.
Oh, sure, there's contractors, but they had their own platoons.
But you're right. And obviously a lot of them work with the government and the Department of Defense and all that good stuff. But I remember watching that. It doesn't make sense. Like
they talk about doing stuff for your country, but
some don't. And so I was like, well.
Yeah. Now I will say about this. This movie, this Superman movie, held up pretty well, except for in one department, which I knew it wasn't going to hold up in. And it's like a very Drew issue of the jobs that people hold in this film. And that comes from my own bias, my own issue. So I'll just say real quick, my own bias is I was a journalist for a New York newspaper for like many years. And like, I know how newspapers run, and it's very rare to see a film in which like, especially films outside of like Spotlight or like The Post, where like journalism is taken as anything other than like a weird MacGuffin or like a job for like a lady to do in a rom-com when she works for like the snail section.
Alienate people.
Yeah, bloggers, all this stuff. So this movie had some really bugged me out, and every Superman movie does, because it's inherent into the story of Superman that there's going to be an issue with him working at the newspaper. So I knew that was going to be my issue going into it. What about you, Alex? Did you have any preconceptions coming into?
Well, going into it, I had a lot of preconceived notions about I would say, again, this is a movie I knew of. I knew a lot of the details. Marlon Brando, before going into it, I already have seen a handful of the scenes that Marlon Brando was in at the very beginning. A lot of the stuff, and things, but there's a lot of things I did not know about. Like I didn't know about. I knew that what's her face that played Lois Lane in the movie is arguably the best Lois Lane, and
She's awesome. And she gets better in the second one. She's way better in the second one.
That's a whole conversation right there. And I definitely agree, but it's just like the thing is I don't like her as a person, but I get her as a person. Like I feel like I know her and I like that. And she feels like a real person that I could actually kind of work with and get along with, even though I don't know if I would be friends with her. But I would.
Would you be an underage child crossing state lines into the completely opposite coast with her? Because that happens in this movie for no reason.
If I were in this movie, I'd be most likely to be Kitty Pryde's character. No, wait, not Kitty Pryde. Kitty's character.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree. She's the best part of this movie. Valerie, what's her name? Valerie. That's not Valerie Plame. It's the actress's name. Oh, let's get into it. Before we get in, before we talk about like our favorite characters and stuff, we're gonna do the thing that we do on Cinema Bias called "Tell Me the Plot." And I've actually seen this movie before. It hadn't been for a hot minute, but I had seen it. So Alex, you're gonna be in the plot seat, so to speak.
You're such a weenie, you know that?
What did you say?
You're such a weenie, you know that?
I am a weenie. I'm a McWeenie. So yeah, you're gonna be in the plot seat, and that's actually what we're renaming the segment. I've just decided, where you're gonna get 60 seconds to tell me the plot of Superman, the movie.
All right.
So let me get a timer up. Hold on. Let's see where my stuff is that I don't have anything on me. Because I am a weenie. Let's see.
Total weenie. Absolutely agree. Now,
it's been a whole day. Let's see. When we look back in history and say what happened today that Drew wasn't prepared, at least for this episode, we will have a good reason.
I was not emotionally prepared to go in today, this whole weekend. Family's exhausting.
Family's exhausting. My dad, I spent the whole weekend telling my dad about Schmodown, and like he was definitely I don't know if nonplussed is the right word because it has two definitions, but he definitely was like, okay, like this is a thing you do. At least Nerd Chronic was there to make it look a little bit more legitimate. I made him watch my match. Okay, so I got it up. Hey, Jeremy. By the way, hey, everyone in the comments. Hey, Amber. Hey, Nerd Chronic, who said I was holding a hot Cheeto. I wasn't. You wish. Hey, Dana. Hey, Notorious by Chance. I don't know if that's Chance or his partner.
I think it's Chance.
Sweet. I don't know. This doesn't sound like Chance. I can't hear this in Chance's voice, but maybe it is. Let us know.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay, so 1 minute on the clock. Tell me the plot of Superman the movie.
Oh, wow. No. Okay, so it starts off on the Krypton, and where Jor-El, I think that's his dad's name, and Jor-El's like, yo, fellow Kryptonian people, world sucks, but you guys are like doing horrible shit, and therefore Krypton is going to shit. Therefore, everyone's like, nah, bruh, you're not right. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to pretty much not supposed to put you in prison, but we're going to make fun of you for a minute. And Jor-El's kind of like, I'm going to send my baby off to Earth because he's going to be a pretty cool dude over there. And also, this world sucks. And everyone dies on Krypton. Meanwhile, Superman goes as baby over on a vessel over to Earth, where he ends up being an alien baby with superpowers because his body's not used to Earth and has a lot of heightened senses. And he ends up arriving into Smallville down in Kansas. He has a couple parents. As a toddler, he listed off the truck. A whole bunch of stuff. He ends up going to a small town.
Time. Well, we got to the plot of Smallville, the TV show. That's pretty impressive that we managed to get to that part, but also managed to not mention Zod, who is part of this movie.
Luthor or Lois. He wasn't even an adult by the time.
I will say something about this movie. It has extremely odd pacing in that we do spend most of the movie like leading up to him being Superman and like not being Superman. Like the only confrontation part is like very much at the end.
I actually like that though.
You like it? I mean, I didn't mind it. It was for a superhero movie. It felt weirdly chill. Like it felt like it was just Superman like hanging out and like getting a job and like finding out that he liked Lois and like learning. Yeah.
What makes Superman really great is that, and I also say this from the best parts of Superman films from personal experience watching the movies, is that character-wise, what makes Superman unique is not the fact that he has all these really cool superpowers and everything, is that he has them, but actively decides to keep to himself. he can be a dick. He can't, and some of the comics ends up being like a president. Well, not president, but he ends up being a dictator and taking over the entire planet. But he holds himself back, and he's very reserved. And
he doesn't make himself a god. Yeah, he could have.
And he's just trying to. He's just trying to be like a pretty chill person.
Got
like,
those Midwest values. He does. Now that I've met people from Kansas and stuff, like he does remind me that somebody who grew up in the Midwest. Like he's just really nice. Like he's very low key. Like he just kind of seems like the guy who's gonna laugh at your jokes from the back of the room instead of like trying to like one up you. And I appreciate that about him. Like I appreciate that he's sort of like that. I appreciate that this god created a cuck personality for himself. So like basically there's just a version of Superman because like in Kevin Smith, I forget which I think it's Clerks, right? Or is it Mallrats where they're talking about like how he's interesting. Or it is one of the Kevin Smith movies, right? Maybe I'm totally misremembering. It's Tarantino. But it's like how maybe is it Tarantino where he's talking about how Superman, I'm thinking that it is. Superman is actually sorry?
It's Kill Bill Part 2.
Yeah, you're right. It's Kill Bill, you're right. It's Kill Bill Part 2 where like Clark Kent is like the other identity. It's like he's actually Jal. He is Superman, and then he creates like the way that Bruce Wayne creates Batman. Jal creates Clark Kent. Clark Kent is not a real dude. He never existed. Jal is real. He has to just create a super alter ego. And instead of making this guy cool or like Batman or like badass, he's like, no. What if I'm just like a dork? Like a total loser. And the only thing I'm going to do differently is I'm just going to hang out with the girl that I already like and just be her best friend and hear all about how great this other version of me is. And like, just spend all my time trying to act like I'm sad that she isn't into me and into this other dude. And it is hilarious.
So it's such a interesting process because Christopher Reeve, he almost didn't get the part.
Really?
And yeah, because apparently when he came in for the audition, he did great. He did spectacular. He did great for the role of Superman in Flying Colors. However, no one believed that he could be Clark Kent. And
wow,
so
that's not an issue we've tried to make with any other Superman that we've had.
For his audition, Richard Donner, he had like a bunch of actors that were also in the audition. They say that aced it, and thing is, what he did as Clark Kent. So the audition specifically was he would like walk down the street, one as Superman, and that would be one part of the audition. And the second part of the audition would be walking down the street as Clark Kent.
Yeah. I will say
his body changed. His body language, the way he worked the way he looked at things, his tone, the way he interacted with people. Oh, it was. Can I tell you? That's why it
is really annoying to me in every other version of Superman that it's like supposed to be believable that these are not the same person, or that somebody who's a journalist who would work in a newspaper wouldn't be like, there's something fishy. And by the way, again, so they rectify this in Superman too. But like in Man of Steel, or sorry, Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice, they have the obit for Superman in the same paper on the same page as they have the obit for like sports reporter Clark Kent. And it's the same goddamn photo. And you're like, nobody just had a question about this. And you're supposed to just believe it's magic. Christopher Reeve, you believe he's two different people. He holds his body differently. You know? There's this moment. Go ahead.
It changes the game. Because I love that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. Of all comic book movies, it's probably one of my favorite scenes of all time.
This is I believe, from Superman too, but like just look at the difference between his body posture. Like it's the way that it's not just the glasses, it's not just the hair, it's the way that he slumps.
They changed the hair part.
But it's the way that his shoulders are schlumpy. It's the way that he's like, ugh, like it's his whole mannerism, and they don't bother doing that with any of the other. Because like Henry Cavill is not believable as a dork, and Christopher Reeve, for some reason, despite his lantern jaw, totally is.
Brandon Routh, honestly, is kind of to me. He's actually he's also very believable as Clark Kent. But that's another conversation another day.
Yeah, let's talk about it. We can talk about all the other ones too in relation to this.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I'm not a huge. Thing is, I really, really love Henry Cavill as Superman. I don't like that interpretation of Superman, but I do like Henry Cavill as Superman. And I just don't think he was, anyway, but I actually really, really like Brendan Routh as Superman, and he was really put in really unfortunate circumstances where Bryan Singer and the producers and studio heads, they didn't know what direction Superman wanted to go with.
You could have just said unfortunate circumstances because Bryan Singer and just ended the sentence. Because that was just unfortunate.
He's in it too as Lex Luthor. And however, those are horrible, horrible circumstances for sure. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to watch. However, Brendan Routh in particular, he's given really difficult directions. He's told to emulate Christopher Reeve and do impersonations of Christopher Reeve, but he's also simultaneously told to do his own thing. And he's told to improvise, and he's told to be creative with the character. And it's just like, no, you can only do one or the other. You can't try to be identical to the first ones, but also try to do something completely different. And
well, I mean, it's also just like it's weird. It's not like Batman where you're like, you can be stoic, but you can also put a weird spin on it because Bruce Wayne's a maniac. Because Bruce Wayne's like a rich kid maniac who's like, in any other story, Bruce Wayne is a serial killer. So that's fine. And you can put your own little spin on it. You can be like you can be the version of it that's Michael Keaton, who's like, let's go nuts, and like acts all crazy all of a sudden. And you're like, who's he doing? That's not how Batman talks. That's not how Clark Kent talks. Bruce Wayne talks. Like, what is he doing in that scene? You can do Christian Bale as sort of like the rich kid Patrick Bateman version of it. You can do Ben Affleck as sort of like this is how like an actual rich man would act if he thought that he was God and could determine like what's right and wrong with the world. There's so many ways to play it. Superman, like you're just like supposed to be a nice guy who has a bunch of powers, and your only motivation is you like this one Earth chick, and that's it. Like you are given nothing else to work with.
Okay, something else also to remember is that he is so good at this, not so much camouflage, but in a whole bunch of the comics, Metropolis and Gotham City, they're essentially like on a Jersey City, New York City basis.
That's true. Although in the comics, it's Delaware.
It's very close together. They're described as being across the river from each other, essentially.
The new version, yes, yeah, absolutely.
And there's a whole bunch of situations where obviously Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne know each other, and they're both described as being like essentially white guys with dark hair and blue eyes. Well, there would be situations where some people would be a little too suspicious of Clark Kent possibly being Superman, or vice versa, or Bruce Wayne being
people
Batman.
People assume that Superman is Batman.
Each other.
Well, here's what's interesting is like, yeah, I do like that thing, and I think it was teased down Dawn of Justice, but not like well enough, which is like Superman would immediately be like, Batman's a supervillain because my other biggest nemesis is a very rich man who likes to do like schemes. Like it's like Metropolis has. Like, it's almost weirder that Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor aren't the arch nemesis, considering that they're both the richest men of their respective cities that are, again, right across the river from each other. It'd be like if Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk lived 20 minutes from each other and each, like, decided that they were going to become vigilantes. Like, that would be the main fight. You wouldn't need, like, a guy in clown makeup to fight one of them and, like, another rich dude come in and be, like, Donald Trump. Which is also what I want to talk about in this movie, is Gene Hackman, which was incredible. Gene Hackman in this movie is great.
Okay, so I also kind of want to mention, he had a lot of issues with working with Richard Donner. And there was like a lot of that. They went back and forth. They reshot a whole bunch of stuff. And he just was never fully happy while making this movie. But my big takeaway is also, how awesome is this dope ass layer? I mean, is that not?
We need to get into the plot of this movie. Like, we do need to talk about the plot of this, because there's go back to the layer, because that's part of it. I need to talk to you about how I thought Lex Luthor was supposed to be a genius. I thought Lex Luthor was like supposed to be. No, he's not. He is the dumbest fucking villain I have ever seen. The dude's plan is to blow up his own city with a missile that he's going to put underground, which is where he lives. Like, I know he has a mom going to like Los Angeles, but he lives in wherever you want to put it, Delaware, New York. He has another missile headed for New Jersey, and his fucking layer is underground in Metropolis.
Yeah.
Why would that be your plan? Also, like, the best line does come from Miss, what's her name? Miss, God, her name is so hard to pronounce. Miss Thersham.
Who are we talking about? Kitty?
Is her name Kitty? I thought she had a different name. Like, yeah, his assistant, like his chick.
lady? No. Oh, there's Otis, the guy, and they're
No. It's Miss. Yeah, you're saying Kitty. It's right. It's Miss. Oh no, Eve Teschermeyer or Tescher. What's her name? Tescherman.
Who's that?
It's Gene Hackman's assistant. He's always screaming her name. Yeah, he's always screaming her name, Miss Tescherman. Someone tell me how to pronounce it in the thing.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking
about. Lex Luthor he has like the dude assistant, right? And then he has the chick assistant, and she goes, Lex, why do so many people have to die to pull off like the crime of the century? And he's like yelling her name, and then she's like, her mom lives in New Jersey, and that's why she lets Superman go.
That's it. Just Martha.
No, her name's Marsha. Her name's Miss Teschermacher.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Played by the amazing Valerie Perrine. She's my favorite part of this entire movie. She's the only one who makes sense, and she's like constantly like, "Is this a good idea? Like, are you sure you want to do this?" Like, she's amazing in this movie. She was always my favorite part. Just that line, Lex, tell me, Lex, why do so many people have to die for the crime of the century? Is maybe the underpinning of this film, because, right, Lex Luthor's plan does not need to include murder. He is buying up real estate to create an alternative East Coast or West Coast.
Yeah. Which is the same plot, actually, of Superman Returns, because his whole goal, he wants to create real estate, and that means pretty much creating a whole new continent.
So why create a second bomb?
But I don't know. I have no clue. He's taking like a whole bunch of kryptonite, and he wants to create it because that's a whole bunch of power. But okay, so
New Jersey, where he lives.
No, like I'm talking about like it on the map that it shows. It's like it's bigger.
No, and I get that first part.
Brazil. It's like the size of Brazil. That the continent he ends up trying to make.
Yeah, no, I know. He's trying to blow up. Basically, he's got the stuff. He doesn't have seaside territory. He doesn't have Los Angeles, San Francisco, whatever. But he's got like the Midland of California, and he's bought up all this real estate. And he wants to create like a thing on the San Andreas Fault. So basically, get rid of Los Angeles, have half of California fall into the ocean, and then boom, he owns all the real estate that's oceanfront. That's like a plan, okay? Then he has a second missile that he's aiming at New Jersey for some fucking reason. And Mrs. Teschermacher is like, my mom lives in New Jersey. But more importantly, she should say, also, we live in a 100-mile radius of New Jersey, and you live underground, you stupid fuck. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
She's like, she's not supposed to be super genius. She's supposed to be like, she's one of the only people that questions him, which I think is actually really interesting.
She's great.
But she's also treated like she's stupid, which is a really weird situation because she's 100% right. She has every right to question him. But the thing is, she never tells him no. And she's like you said, it's like, my mom lives there. And she just like kind of.
But she does like side eye him. I will say that she does. There are like, especially because she also like lets Superman go because she's like, this is dumb. Like you almost feel like this is like a Harley Quinn style villain. Like this version of Lex Luthor, like where he's just always like bumbling around with his like his assistant who he treats like shit. It's like Pinky in the Brain. It's like, you know, like their relationship is that you're like, this guy doesn't have any actual friends. Like he definitely thinks he's the smartest person in the room, but his actual intelligence level is just about right up there with his lackey and below that of Miss Teschermacher, Eve, I guess. He has that line where he says, and Gene Hackman delivers it perfectly, like, some people can stare at the blah, 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 and whatever, and I can stare at a pack of gum and see the cosmos. And it's just like, really? Why do you think that? Like, because you plan to blow up part of the continent you're on? Like, that doesn't make you smart. I understand that you're a real estate tycoon, but like her point about like nobody has to die. Like if you have a bunch of real estate underground, which it implies in the beginning he does, why don't you pollute the air above the ground and make everyone move down below, and then you own all the real estate? Like there's so many other ways to do real estate shady deals without murdering a bunch of people. It just seems weird.
Well, the thing is, when it comes to Lex Luthor, I feel like there's this real drive for this ambition to get recognized. He seems constantly pissed that people don't talk about him. They don't recognize his majestic abilities, his magnanimousness,
is he literally based on Trump, who existed back then?
What?
Was he actually was Gene Hackman basing him on Trump because Trump did exist back then and he was a real estate person, and he seems 100% based on Donald Trump.
I'm not honestly. Honestly, now that they say that, maybe that sounds like it could be. It could be influenced for sure.
Megalomaniac who thinks he's a genius, who's into real estate.
I think technically Trump would have been baby Trump would have been too young because he was in
70. Yeah,
but I could be wrong. I'm not entirely sure.
Maybe he's based on his dad or something, because it feels like weirdly prescient. Like he's like hanging out in New York. He's like I'm the best. Like everyone else is an idiot, so I'm gonna blow up half the continent, even though that just seems like it would hurt me.
He seems like he's like a baby, almost.
Yeah,
he's whiny. He doesn't like that people don't pay attention to him. He wants to be considered a supervillain, but he's pissed that no one. And he does call himself a villain, like a supervillain.
At least he's self-aware. There is that thing where he seems to be. He's not delusional where he thinks he's helping the world. He's like, but what a weirdly small motivation for a guy who claims that he can like be a genius and read the cosmos of a bubblegum wrapper. If you're a genius and you're just so smart, why are you buying real estate is not the realm of the geniuses. Like you could be a mad scientist, you could be like a dictator, but like a real estate tycoon, that's so petty.
Well, the thing is, in the comics, there's a lot of different interpretations of this character. Now, some of my favorite versions of Lex Luthor involve him being incredibly charismatic, that he is a leader. People are excited to follow him.
Right.
He's very much like a cult leader, and he is a megalomaniac. He ends up being nominated. He ends up becoming president of the United States at one point.
Yep. And he's able to like leverage all like the stuff of like what's going on in Gotham to be like, we need some crime cracking down. Like he's able to leverage all the other crazy shit to make himself look like a good person. Yeah. But that's not Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor. I also like the interpretation of him that I'm singular in this. I really do love Jesse Eisenberg's interpretation of him as Max Landis. Like that's just who he is. Like he's just a hyper ADHD dude with daddy issues who's really proud of himself and really smug and talks really fast and with his hands. Like that's my only part of Batman versus Superman that I like truly like can dig on, and I know that I'm alone in that.
I understand that version. I actually really do appreciate it, and I think he's a very interesting yin-yang interpretation of Superman and Lex Luthor. And just because Jesse Eisenberg, he interpreted him as this really weird, similar to.
He's doing Max Landis specifically. Yeah,
and he is to a certain degree very charismatic, and he's fast talking, and he is very much an asshole.
He seems like our version. Like he seems like a hyper 2020-ish version of Lex Luthor.
It makes complete sense compared to country boy, not Texas, but Kansas pseudo-born boy that just likes hanging out on boats and like bars and shit. It makes
Granny's Peach Tea was Jeremy Miller's Granny's Peach Tea. He's talking about Batman versus Superman. Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. Yes. He's talking about that. It's so dumb, but it's exactly something that this Lex Luthor would do, which is like leave a little calling card that could totally indict him. But like just like this Gene Hackman version, this guy totally wants you to know that he's the villain. Like I would have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for you meddling kids kind of version of a villain, which totally tracks with a sociopathic, egomaniacal, like crazy person that are always brought down because they just want the world to know how smart they are.
Exactly.
Like they're not a serial killer who's genius. Yeah.
It's never about being able to get away with the crimes. It's about getting away with the crimes and them knowing it was you and still running away with like, Snarf, you're not going to get me live. And it just completely makes sense, especially compared to Henry Cavill being so stoic, being a man of few words compared to a man that has way too many words.
Hey, Alex, I think you're echoing. It says so. Do you have headphones or something? See, there you go.
No, I don't. This is the only time I've ever echoed. That's weird.
Let's see. Is it me? Let's see. Is it maybe it's me? I'll try. Is this better, guys? Maybe it's me because I also don't have headphones and I have to do this off my computer. Let me know if this is better. Yeah, I think the thing about it that makes him like a good foil for Superman is right. Superman has this alter ego. Superman is a god who has to or who chooses to pretend that he is a human being, and a really dorky one who is getting again just like cucked all the time by this other person. And like Lex Luthor, that must just drive him crazy because Lex Luthor wants to be like the most well-known person in the world, but there's a Superman. And that's something that's like brought up very late in this movie, but is really interesting. Hold on, let's see.
I think to a certain degree as well, there's a real level of jealousy, knowing that not only is Superman is getting all this recognition, but he also feels like Lex Luthor is jealous of him, and not because he's getting the recognition, but it's in his mind it's coming across so easy. He's not really working for all this attention. He's not.
And he ain't working on
people. He's just getting it naturally. Whereas Lex Luthor, he's doing all this work and nothing recognition.
Well, he lives underground. What do you want from him? Like. But dude, if you want to be famous, like go above ground and be famous. Like he's not a super villain yet because he doesn't seem to want to do anything with it. It's sort of like how I live my life right now, where I both want to be famous, but refuse to like do anything besides lie on this couch. Like, and I'm just like, why are other people getting famous on Twitter and social media? And I'm like, damn them. But at the same time, I'm just sitting here not doing anything. So I guess like it is this weird sort of like weird jealous flex that he has, that he wants to put this plan into motion at the same time that he wants to take down this Superman guy who just started to exist the other day. Because before the events of this movie, like or before the events of the third act of this movie, like Superman doesn't exist. Like there is nobody going around saving the world or saving people in Metropolis. His first act of Superman is to like drag Lois Lane around like in the sky and listen to her thoughts, which is not something I knew Superman could do, and be really super creepy. And why did she think in couplets?
I don't know. There's a handful of things where I don't like what the forget me not kiss essentially. Was that in this movie or is that in the second one?
I don't think it was in this movie. He turns back time, which seems like, being able to read people's thoughts and being able to turn back time seem like two superpowers. I know Superman's like super strong and like it's all good and like he's the biggest, best one. He's the biggest baddie. Turning back time and being able to read thoughts just gives him a level of power that I feel like would make him actually invincible. It's not just that he's strong and can jump high and can fly. If you can read brains and tell people like what's going to happen, and then also reverse the flow of time. So like that's too many things that you can do, and you are unstoppable. And thank God you were raised by like the nice Christian folks over in Kansas, because otherwise you'd be a fucking crazy person. Like you'd be a sociopath.
And it's really interesting to me to think that how did he not grow up to be a complete sociopath?
I don't know. He killed his dad. He like just straight up. Can we be honest? He killed his He killed his adopted father. He challenges him to a race, knowing his dad has a heart attack, and with the knowledge that he has super speed, and then waits and watches when his dad keels over.
Wait, which version are you talking about?
This is the regular Superman. How Papa Kent dies is he challenges him to a race to like the edge of the farm. He's like, "I'll race you to the barn." Even though his dad has a bad heart, and his dad does it, and then his dad just dies of a heart attack.
Yeah, but at that time he was a kid. He didn't. I don't
he was
think
in high school. He was a senior in high school.
That's still a kid.
I mean, it's on Papa Kent. Like he knew he had a bad heart when he found Clark. Like that was already something they established immediately. So like maybe just don't Run a marathon with your superhuman alien child.
Yeah, he was kind of an idiot as well. Let's be honest.
I do like something here, or I find it interesting. Do you notice how like Zod is like teed up in this movie, but then just never comes back? Like the movie actually opens before the planet is destroyed. It opens up with Marlon Brando as not Giles. Yeah, so he's Giles, and he's holding a trial. Joel, yeah, he's like doing his like they're doing like the Ministry of Magic trial for like their version of Dumbledore. And it's Terrence Stamp, who is like Malcolm McDowell light, and this chick with a really cool haircut who I'm like obsessed with, and some idiot big strong dude. I don't know if he's dumb. That's an assumption I'm making based on his looks. He looks like the muscle, and they had some plan to like overturn the planet of Krypton, and Giles has to like be the deciding vote because it has to be a unanimous vote to put them in the Phantom Zone, which is like a box that like you would live in if I don't know if you were fighting in Dune. You have to like go into this giant square and go away forever. And so there's this whole thing where he's like, I'm going to get you, and then I'm going to get all your kids and all your heirs, and they put him in the box and they fly him off, and then we never see him again for the course of the movie, as far as we know, the end. Like, and that's like a really weird place to start. I wonder about like the thought process behind that. Like, why would you not tee up that he might be coming back in the sequel? Like, why even conclude this scene?
I think at the time the thought process was that they had this idea that they are totally going to be doing a second one, but they're not entirely sure how they're going to use it, and also they don't know even if Malcolm McDowell's going to be around.
I get that it's a tease for the sequel, but count your bird in the hand or whatever you want to say. It doesn't make any sense for just watching the movie. Not that many people, I guess, would know like who Zod would be. I guess if you're a super fan of the comics, like I think a lot of people would leave the theater being like, "Oh yeah, whatever happened to that guy?" I get that it's a tease. I also think this movie's pacing is super weird. That like Lex Luthor finds out about Superman in the third act of this film, and like all the action happens, and then he just kind of goes to jail, and the next time we see him, he's bald. And like, because he just found out that Superman exists. There was no time to build up a rivalry. There's no time for him to study who Superman is or what his powers are or find out why he doesn't like him or like realize that like, Superman's in the press more than Lex is. He just finds out Superman exists. And that moment he's like, I should enact my evil plan. And then also simultaneously just take out this super god. And let's just kill two birds. Oh, someone's saying they were made at the same time. Oh, that makes sense. That's why the Donner Cut's the Donner Cut. It was like done like Lord of the Rings style. They all just filmed it.
Well, something also to remember is that Mario Puzo, who wrote The Godfather, who created stories, characters, and actually also starred Marlon Brando, he is actually also one of the story creators that is actually credited for. I think he wrote this. He's one of the people that wrote.
He's one of the four. No, he's one of the five.
Yeah, he's like I know he's one of the few writers. But I know he essentially he created this story for the film.
Yes, he created the story, and he also worked on the screenplay along with David Newman, Leslie Newman, Robert Benton, and an uncredited Tom Mankiewicz.
Mm-hmm. And also the Marlon Brando scenes that were actually filmed from this movie is actually also referenced in Superman Returns.
What?
It's in Superman.
Oh, right. In the beginning of Superman Returns, they do this whole, I do like it, and we'll get into it next week, but they do this whole funny thing in the beginning of Superman Returns where they're like, hey, remember Superman? If not, like, here's everything that happened. It's like the beginning of Fast 7 or whatever, Furious 7 or whatever, where they just give you like in the credits, they just tell you everything that's like led up to this moment. Which again is like it's like speaks to a weird both confidence and like unconfidence about the film, which is like, you're assuming if you're going to see Superman 2, you do not need to be reminded that Superman exists and that he's enemies with Lex Luthor, because that's literally all they need to tee up. I guess the one thing that you would need to know is that like Margot Kidder's Lois Lane is, smells something a little fishy. Like that she's sort of aware that something weird happened in the timeline. Because again, what happens in this movie, and it is horrifying, is that the missile goes off, but Superman has promised to take care of Miss Eve. I'm going to have to go back and watch the movie just to know how you pronounce it. He goes after Eve's mom. He stops that missile first, throws it into space, then goes and stops the missile that's going to the San Andreas Fault. But like in redirecting it, it blows up some other bridges in some other parts of California. And for some reason, and here's where shit gets wacky, the Metro desk reporter from Metropolis has been sent, despite having the only interview with this superhuman that she's like going to run in the paper, they decided to take her off that beat and send her to the opposite coast to study a real estate deal that seems slightly suspicious, which is nuts. So she takes a 14-year-old Jimmy Olsen across state lines to the other side of the country to investigate a real estate deal that, for all intents and purposes, has nothing to do with the events of Metropolis or the existence of a super being. So she's over in there over on the West Coast, and Superman doesn't save her in time, and she dies when her car is crushed by the earth, and we watch her suffocate to death. And it is horrible. It is such a graphic, unnecessary death that feels so real and also visceral. And I'm kind of vibing with it, but it's also very traumatic. You're muted.
Oh, thank you. It is a very sad scene. I have to agree with you, where it wasn't so much the scene itself that made me sad. It was Christopher Reeve that reminded me.
It.
Oh my gosh. I was like, oh shit. There's a legit relationship here, in spite of, like, in theory, only knowing each other for a few days or a few weeks or whatever it might be. And
so what's interesting is we get the sense that, okay, so I never knew this before this movie, I guess, that like Kal knows who he is because his dad sent him these books on tape that he went to Earth with. And so even when he showed up as a kid, he was like a sentient, self-aware kid who knew that he was an alien. There was no like deception of like mom and pa are his real parents. He'd never had this like moment, this teen angst phase where he's like, oh, you're not my real dad. No, like he always knew. He was basically like a puppy that like has like a, like the adopt me sign on it, except puppies are not self-aware. So forget that metaphor. He's like an 18-year-old that you would adopt. Like he knows what his planet was. He knows about Krypton.
No, it's too sort of, it's almost like if you're adopting a child from another country. If I adopt a beautiful black child, and I am a single parent. And I'm a single parent, and the child looks nothing like me. Clearly, they know this child is adopted.
No, but here's my point: is that he knows that he's adopted because his dad sent him these books on tape with all these like lessons, like "Don't turn back time, motherfucker." Like, don't do that. You're a god. So like he has these like because he has the Fortress of Solitude and everything. His dad like is able to tell him things about what he should and should not do, and he directly disobeys his father when he turns back time, which are consequences of which we are never shown.
Well, we didn't really know. He's told pretty early on that the reason what makes him different, but he's not necessarily. He's told pretty consistently, not so much that he is different with all these powers, but he is in constant need to control these powers and hide it and camouflage himself, essentially blend in as much as possible.
But that's not my point. My point is that the point is that he knows who he is. He knows that he's an alien, and he has tapes from his dad, his real dad, saying this is what you can and cannot do. Here's the kind of person you need to be. Here, like he's not confused, and his dad specifically tells him you can't turn back time. And so his betrayal of that is that he does it, and then there's like literally no repercussions.
Well, I mean, in the comics, there is repercussions a little bit, and there is. I mean, he does has a hard time adjusting, and I think there's actually a handful of times where he is younger, where he's like in grade school, and he's still or a baby, and he's still adapting, and. Yeah. And Martha is just like trying to calm him down or trying to figure out a way to make him comfortable to be with her. And man, it's that Martha and Clark Kent. It's just like that little but that interaction is so pure to me. I love it.
Yeah, I mean his thing with it. Why did you say her name? Why did you say that name? It is weird that like the people who created these two biggest comics of the same imprint didn't realize that they just named the mom the same thing. Like that's very lazy. But it is funny that like his first comment, like Clark Kent shows up at this newspaper firm in Metropolis with literally no no background of journalism as far as we know. We don't see him as a newspaper reporter as a kid like we do in like I think Smallville. Like we don't.
He may have. I mean, he may have gone. To,
he may have, but the things that we're told about him as a reporter is that he's a very fast typist. Great. Yeah. And that like his he makes a joke where Margot Kidder makes a joke where she's like, what does his mom have like gray hair? And he's like, actually my mom has white hair. And he's like, so I have a mother, and that is proof that I am human and I am a good person. And you kind of buy it because it's Christopher Reeves, and you're like, okay. And Margot Kidder kind of buys it. She's immediately like charming.
It's what makes it that moment kind of a really great Clark Kent moment in particular. It's just so clearly awkward, and he's compensating for not being human by being so dorky, and that's just who he is. He's trying so hard to fit in, and he doesn't realize how it comes across, and it's just so pure. I love it.
I mean, I'm trying to like rename this like favorite parts, like favorites, because we always say like it's the best moment or scene or characters, whatever, but I just wanted to change it to favorites. Mm-hmm. Like it is our favorite parts of the movie, and that to me is one of, I think, along with Valerie and Ned Beatty, who, let's be honest, we haven't talked at all about Ned Beatty's character. He was great. He was hilarious. It makes me think that this was supposed to be a comedy movie. It kind of reads like a comedy. Like Gene Hackman is not a scary villain. He's a fucking hilarious villain. He's a better villain than like any other villain in the DC franchise.
Comic book movies back then and were very different. This is definitely a true comic book movie, a very traditional comic book movie, at least by that time, because we didn't have super dramatic.
You're right. That's a good point. You're right. They were supposed to be funny. They were supposed to be like lighthearted for children. You're right.
It's made for families. It's made.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
You have to remember that. It's made for large audiences.
It's made for families, so let's add a scene where somebody gets crushed to death and then suffocated in just real time.
Yeah, but also I also think that we would have had a hard time as an audience, having a hard time, not so much liking Lex Luthor, but I think one of the joys of having his character being done by Gene Hackman is that, one, he's really great with physical comedy. He is
so good. And it really comes through in the sequels. Like the second one is, I really want to talk about the second one, where him and Eve play off each other so well. You actually get like why they're connected, like what the bond is there. It's not just like a Harley Joker thing. Like they actually have these moments where they're like making jokes and like kind of doing almost like these winks to the camera that are like really good. But that's in the second one. And this one, you're kind of like, why is she with him? He's abusive.
It never, at least initially, it doesn't come off as abusive. It just comes off as dismissive.
He screams her name. That's all he does is scream her name.
I kind of do that to Lucas every once in a while, but that's just me.
But not like in a sexy way. He's just like, Miss.
Yeah, it's definitely the tone for sure.
He straight up killed her mom. He picked a city that her mom lives in, and she's like, my mom lives there, and he's like, I don't fucking care.
Yeah, I don't think he sees her in that way.
I don't think he sees her as human. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Superman.
Oh, are they not sleeping together? I just thought about this. Are they not? Because in the second movie, he makes a comment where she's like, have you thought about me in a bikini? He goes, no, I thought about you in a parka, which kind of implies that he's not like sexually, or like he doesn't think about her like that. Like she's just like another friend of his. Possibly.
I disagree. Honestly, I feel like there's maybe it's
a sexual.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe she's the only one that knows who he is.
I agree. I agree.
And
it is almost like, it's almost like when you date a guy in high school who like turns out to be gay, but you still share that bond. And like, you're like, I know you and you're bullshit. And like, so we dated, so we have this connection, even though like you're no longer into me. And then like, I might hold a candle for you. There's still like a bond there because I knew you before you were whoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very specific analogy, but I think it works.
I'm sure someone like Lex Luthor doesn't really have many relationships.
No, because he's got to think of himself as smart. I think, the closest analogy is it's very much like, at least in the first movie, it's portrayed very much like the Harley Joker dynamic, where she's just like, mooning over him, doing whatever he says. He's dismissive of her, and and he's like actively hurtful to her, or like actively willing to put her family into danger when she's like, please don't do that. And so your only question is like, why does she have this Stockholm syndrome? In the second movie, you get a little bit what their connection is, and the fact that like she doesn't put him on some pedestal. She actually thinks she's like the intelligent equivalent of him, essentially, and he treats her more such.
It's okay. So it's actually interesting you say that, because in Superman Returns, I also do want to keep in mind that I don't love Superman Returns, but I really, really enjoyed Superman Returns. And I also really, really, it's a difficult movie to me to watch, considering the director and Kevin Spacey's in it. So I'm like, it's a struggle. However, as much as I love this interpretation of this character, there's the same character is actually played by Parker Posey in Superman Returns, and she is everything.
She kills it. I mean, I would love the reveal that that Mrs. Teschenbauer is like actually the brains of the organization. That she's actually the one, like, she was Valerie Perrine was actually a Bond chick, and like that tracks because this is supposed to be a Bond chick character. She's like that. She's just sort of like the foil. She's sort of like there to like kiss Superman at some point, but like you get the sense that he just kind of considers her like a trophy girlfriend. Like he's just like, he wants her because he wants pretty things. He wants all the nice things. So therefore he wants her, not specifically because he himself is attracted to her. He just wants what other people can't have. And so he's going to like acquire her. But in the second movie, and again, we won't get too into it, they do this like little thing with their teeth where they're like, it's funny, like somebody trying to smile without any teeth. And then they do this little weird thing with each other. And it's maybe the most straight up real moment I've ever seen of chemistry between two people in a movie. Besides Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone in Crazy Stupid Love. And that's my hot take.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, okay. I stand corrected. If that's the case, I stand corrected. I
think he's saying this as a subjective opinion. He's saying subjectively he doesn't like her as much as he likes her.
Yes, I thought they were meant to be similar characters overall.
They are supposed to be similar in character. Ryan's just saying, it's almost like he'd be like, she's no Sharon Stone, but that's a subjective opinion. Like, they are supposed to be playing equivalent characters.
I actually personally prefer Parker Posey. I think her character comes across, she also actively takes it upon herself to not only question him, but she is like sarcastic in front of him. She makes fun of him publicly in front of his cronies, and she's the only one that he lets do that. And I thought that was just really weird to see as this like super like this like megalomaniac.
I want to talk to Ryan's comment for a second. I would not say that he's an incel, because he could technically sleep with this chick who is dying to get that ass. Like, he's not an incel. That's involuntary celibate. Like, an incel is like the Mad Hatter. I feel like from Batman, like a lot of the Batman dudes, like the Penguin's an incel, like those people I would believe. But like, not like Luthor, who could get ass if he wanted. He's more like asexual.
What is an incel? I don't get it.
Oh my god! Again, this is the GIMP thing all over again. You don't know what an incel is?
I've never heard of it.
No, it's okay. Incel stands for involuntary celibate. It's a lot of those guys. I'm just gonna qualify by saying it's like a lot of these people who are very violent young American males who believe that women not wanting them is the source of all problems in the world, and therefore they hate women and they become mass shooters.
I didn't. Yeah, I knew. I always called them like men's rights assholes. But they are men's rights activists.
I
didn't realize it was an official name. But
it's a slight distinction of like men's rights activists and incels, which is like the Jordan Peterson community. That's a whole other conversation. But I will say that like the distinction is Lex Luthor could get ass if he wanted to. He just doesn't seem to want to, which implies, and again, I'm making very broad generalizations. It implies a sexuality, it implies that he has a sexuality preference that just isn't Miss Teschenbauer. Like, he could have sex with her. He's just not sexually attracted to her. He wants her to be a arm candy.
Yeah, he likes the idea of her and like what she presents.
He represents, yeah. You could say that it's asexual or gay or whatever, but like he's just not into her.
Okay, that's why the association.
That's why you said kitty. That's why you said
kitty earlier. So I stand corrected. Yes.
I wonder why they changed it. I wonder why, because like Kitty's already like, isn't that a MCU or DC character?
Oh, there's a character named Kitty Pryde that is.
That's MCU, but
yeah,
isn't it?
That's it.
Isn't that the name of Catwoman in the '60s version? Wasn't her name? Oh, I'm thinking of Eartha Kitt. Never mind. Sorry.
That's it. Eartha Kitt played Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman.
Is her name Selena? Oh, it is Selena. Yeah, and then Kitya is her name when she has an alter ego in the Batman movie. Don't ask me why I know.
I do want to talk about it real quickly before we're going to be branching off here pretty soon. Guys, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever my baby, you can let us know if our opinions are complete shit, or even better, you can let us know your opinions regarding this movie. Please let us know in a super chat or in a Streamlab. That'd be much appreciated here at Cinema Bias. Now, do want to mention one of my favorite moments of this movie. Overall, we've talked about how Christopher Reeve is fantastic, and one of my favorite scenes is the rooftop scene where he's like, "You really shouldn't be smoking."
Yeah, dude, he's got so much game. God,
oh my gosh, I was like, Superman has game. He does.
But also, why does Lois Lane think in terms of like very basic ass couplets? Like she's like, when he reads her mind, she's like, "I like to go to the stars. One day I'd go to Mars. Superman is my friend. And I hope this isn't the end." And you're like, what?
Because she's written by a man. That's why.
Also, I forgot to get to the funniest part of this whole concept, which is that she can't spell. She spells brazier with a Z. Like there's several moments in this movie where they keep talking about like, she's like, somebody hands her back copy and they go, "There's only one P in rapist." What? And like her first line of dialogue is saying, "How many T's are there in bloodletting?" And then at one point, she's there. How many P's in rapist? And then she asks that somebody tells her there's no Z in brazier, meaning she's literally the worst.
That's definitely awkward. It's okay. So, but one of my favorite moments is that, like I said, just talking about how Superman has game. Clark Kent has no game, which I think is just so cool. But specifically, the moments in the apartments. Also, how does a journalist living in New York City, a young journalist, have that fucking apartment?
Oh, that was easier to explain back then because like real estate was like a little bit different back then. Like you could live in the Lower East Side or Brooklyn and just have a nice ass giant apartment. It wasn't exactly the same. The bigger issue. Well, first of all, how would Superman be able to afford that apartment? As we know from like Justice League, Superman don't have any money.
If anything, he can live wherever he wants in the world, and he would just fly over.
He still needs to have like a social security number and like a down deposit. And Superman doesn't make money. Like Superman don't print money. He doesn't rob banks. Yeah, his mom loses the farm.
He can literally live in the Sahara Desert and then just send all of his money over to his mom.
What money? Where is he making income? Where's the income coming from?
He makes money at the Bugle. That's why.
Right, but like that's a very low. I'm not sure if you know this, but journalists make $0, and he's sending half of it home to his mom, who owns like a dilapidated farm.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's why I kind of mentioned about Lois Lane having that dope ass apartment. I was like, I don't care.
I just assumed that she didn't live in Midtown, like a nice part of the city. I assume because like it was easier back in the day to like live in the Lower East Side or Brooklyn, like places we consider like dope places now. But like you could get a loft in Brooklyn and have a really big space. I mean, it's also there's so many things that don't make sense about her, like why she's supposed to be such a good journalist and City Beat, but then also her City Beat takes her out to the desert. There's so much that we need to play with here, but I don't want to get too deep into it. I just also want to talk about how it is actually really smart of Superman. It's so smart of Superman to make Clark Kent like so close to Lois, because that way you know that she's never cheating on you. Like, you know that there's nobody else in the picture because she basically, he friend zones himself. He makes himself into his own friend zone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so he can just hear. Yeah, it's perfect.
I think I think there's a lot going on there. I think he's actually really scared at the idea of her finding out and having that potential conversation where He's been lying to her this entire time about who he is, his history, and why he came there.
That's cute. I really do like that. In this version of Superman, he's like still learning how to be Superman. He's like, Lois, he's gonna tell her. He's like, Lois, I'm Superman. Nah. Yeah.
But there's that on top of he doesn't want her to get hurt. The association. Thing is, given his powers, he knows her heartbeat. He knows where she is in the world at any given moment. And
so creepy. Was he like fucking Robert Pattinson in Twilight?
Kind of. I mean, essentially. Well, thing is,
50 Shades of Grey. Bullshit.
Superman actually has this power that he actually has the amazing ability to listen to everyone's heartbeats simultaneously, and he recognizes how everyone is different.
Yeah, that's a pretty good power. That's super hearing. A better power is being able to read minds, which is also something he can do.
Yeah, I mean,
why would you need a heartbeat to tell you that they were scared if you could just listen to their head? Like that. Am I crazy, or is that too much of a power that I feel like is not explored? If that's Superman's thing, that he can read your mind, that's thought crimes. You could stop anything from happening. He would know what Lex Luthor's plan was. Even if Lex Luthor had, because we find out that he can't see through iron arbitrarily. What is he, like a fucking fairy? Like iron is also his weakness. So he doesn't know that there's kryptonite in the box, but he can read Lex Luthor's mind, and he could just be able to think about there being kryptonite in the box, right? Unless he's just thinking really hard about it not being in the box.
Or alternatively, he's
like Scott Pilgrim.
Smart. He's able to like block him out somehow, some way.
Well, maybe he's doing the Scott Pilgrim, Brandon Routh thing where he's thinking that the creamer is in the other coffee. Like you can do that thing. Ryan's comment is bonkers. There's so much in this movie that turns out the production of it just seems like it was really intense. It was supposed to be sung by Margot Kidder, but they chose to go with the spoken word version. Why? You obviously have the song rights. What's going on there?
Can I tell you a secret as well regarding the music? I mixed up the Star Wars theme.
It sounds exactly the same. It's the same theme song.
Yeah, every time I hear I was like when Lucas was telling me with like, especially with like it goes on like on space, and you see it in the opening credits is
you know that like John Williams won it's the same guy as Star Wars, and John Williams won or was nominated. I believe he won the Oscar for this soundtrack. But it's sort of like how when I just recently watched Avatar, I was like, does anyone notice it's a different composer, but it's just the Titanic theme and the ascending chords. It's like do do, but instead of going do 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 do, it just goes do 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 do.
Well, especially if you're like, I remember when I literally thought it was the same, and I remember being a kid and asking my parents, like, why is this theme? Why is it the same theme for Star Wars and Superman? And I would be like 5 years old, being like I don't get it. They just sound so similar.
You would think that you would try it differently because also Star Wars come out after this, right? Star Wars comes out a little bit after this. No, same year.
The first Star Wars films. The first
came out what year? What was the first Star Wars?
Hold up.
I know this is 78. The first Star Wars is 77. Okay, so the year before this, Star Wars comes out. Star Wars, big old movie, starts with the space and the opening crawl and the da 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 da. This movie decides to start out the next year, same composer, starts out with space, opening crawl, and it's like da 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 da. It's like the same fucking song, and it's the same. It's supposed to feel like it's supposed to remind you that Star Wars was a dope movie, so maybe you'll like this space thing because it starts out in space.
At the end of the day, it's not a crawl, but it's it has like a blue font swishing around.
It doesn't have a crawl, but it's in space and it has a font, and it starts with the thorns.
With that booming, very like
and you start in outer space.
I can see some people in the chat being like, no, they're so different. It doesn't matter how in theory different they are. They're similar enough. They're similar enough, and they came out.
You don't hire John Williams to do your space theme unless you're trying to make people think it's kind of like that other space thing from last year that we love Gosh.
And I
Direct decision.
Most of Danny Elfman's music to me sounds exactly the same.
And you know what? If you use Danny Elfman in your Tim Burton movie, or if you use Danny Elfman in general, you're probably trying to sound like a Tim Burton movie, right? Unless you're doing Ed Wood and you just get Howard Shore to sound exactly like Tim Burton, which is a distinct. What I'm saying is, it's a choice. It was a choice to make people remind them of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it is very similar. I got confused listening to it. I was like, wait, am I watching the right movie? Because like I was listening to it sort of like half cocked, and I started to think to myself, wait, is there another Superman theme that I'm thinking of that is different? Where it's like here, and then I was like, no, I'm thinking of this song from Mighty Mouse. Like, here he comes to save the day.
Well, real quickly, I do want to ask you, I feel like it's actually for this movie in particular, I think this is actually a really important segment of our show that we haven't really touched on in a while, which is, does it hold up?
Oh yeah, great question.
Mm-hmm.
Does this movie hold up? I think, here's my hot take. With today's, like, how we consider superhero movies today, and the almost backlash we've had to not backlash, but the way we started to expand on the concept of superheroes with stuff like The Boys and Umbrella Academy and this new show Invisible on Prime, which is the idea that like these heroes that we tout up because they have powers wouldn't be the heroes of the narrative, really. They would be the villains. Just because they have the powers and history is written by the winner, like we consider Superman the good guy, but in actuality, Superman is to other people in other countries, he's a usurper. He's like he just comes in and does all the things, like Watchmen too. Like the heroes are fallible, and to a certain extent, they're all corruptible. And I think this movie, in that way, is a really nice antidote to that, because this is like not all of them. Like this one guy would be like, it's like not all guys. Like there would be this one nice guy who doesn't try to, it's like the one nice Hollywood executive, right? There are such things as gentlemen superheroes in the world. And this would be like the example of it. And so because he's this nice farm boy from Kansas, I think it works. It almost works as like he's just a good guy. It doesn't need to be dark or gritty.
For a long time, personally, I didn't love Man of Steel, but I liked it. Okay. I had some problems with the story. I'm like, some parts just don't make sense to me. Like, wait, why he doesn't seem remorseful? Anyway, okay, that's another conversation. But after doing more research and watching these films and everything, after watching this, it makes me so much more angry at Zack Snyder's Superman.
You don't need another reason to be angry at Zack Snyder's Superman. Well, see, the Zack Snyder Superman is actually interesting. That's the bad version, right? That's the version where
he's not.
It's because he's in love with Lois, but he could very easily turn evil.
Oh, absolutely. The thing is, he doesn't seem. He's not treated as a bad guy in the movies. He's in a situation where Zack Snyder, I don't think he really likes Superman.
No,
and he treats him like a villain, which I definitely actually really think that's actually a really interesting perspective.
Well, that was supposed to be the trajectory of him, is if he does turn evil. Like in that's why we got in the Snyder cut, we got that extra stuff at the end, because that was his envisionment of what happens to Clark.
But that
very much fits with today. Yeah.
But that changes everything about that makes Superman. That's like making Bruce Wayne. Actually, let's have him be a kid from
be a street urchin.
Like where he has a happy family life. He has no money, and he's been working his entire life. He doesn't know or whatever.
Because comic books, by definition, do multiverses. That's the whole concept of like what comic books are able to do.
Yes, I understand that, but so much of the core aspects of what makes Superman great is that it's just the way he treats people, is the way he creates hope, and the way he inspires people surrounding him, and the way he reacts to people around him, and his innate need to protect those around him in spite of hurting himself to an obscene degree.
But some of the most famous Superman stories, some of the most, like the modern day considered classic Superman stories, would be like Frank Miller's The Dark Knight series, in which Superman is not evil, but he's being leveraged and coerced to do violence against Batman and all these people because they're holding Krypton, the president's holding Krypton in like a thing. There's also like Red Sun, in which he lands in Russia instead of America. I mean, there's also the Infinite Earth Crisis thing where Bruce Wayne dies, and so it is Thomas Wayne who becomes Batman, and then Martha Wayne who becomes the Joker. I mean, the whole idea of these alternate universes,
absolutely.
I like it.
But I love the idea of having a lot of these really interpretations of the same character. I think that's really what makes it interesting to me. However, I still
kind of loses Superman.
Let's say what makes again, but the thing is, it just takes away all the great things about Superman to me.
True.
That makes him so special, and it just makes me just so sad to see these newer versions. And I get it; it's edgy, it's new, it's creative or whatever. But it's such to me, it's so much harder to create a story that's in order to reinvent this story. Rather than to and create it in a way that can still be appreciated and respects the original version, and it's just as great and holds true to a lot of its core values, rather than completely rewrite every single thing about it and still make it private.
Well, why not? And you would wonder why not just then take another property, like The Boys is a great example. Create like a version of Superman that like has been corruptible or whatever. Now, far be it for me to defend Zack Snyder. Far be it for me to defend Zack Snyder. But much like Richard Donner put Zod in the beginning because he was super confident that he was going to be directing the second one, I think the idea of this Superman was that he seems like a good guy in the first one, but you're getting the hints that he is fallible and can be corruptible, and that's almost what makes him human, and he's not supposed to be human. The one thing that we haven't talked about Superman is maybe my favorite Superman comic of all time called, I think it's called It's a Bird, It's a Plane, or maybe it's just called It's a Bird. And it's about a writer. It's like a meta comic about a comic book writer who has to do a Superman comic, but he's just found out he's been diagnosed with Huntington's disease. And it's all about like death and mortality and what it means to not be able to die, what it means for Superman to be an alien who is conscripted to, like an illegal alien who's conscripted to fight for his country, like over and over and over, and hide who he really is, and yet like be held up as a symbol of like America. But like he's not allowed to tell anyone who he is, and he's not from this planet, and it's not his fight. Like none of this is his fight. And it's a really great comic, and I think that's the most relatable version of this character that I just can't ever find an inroad to finding relatable.
Well, Sam, that's actually something I actually really did appreciate about BVS, is because they actually brought in this idea that they kept chanting when he's brought to court. There's all these signs of him being like, "Get the aliens out," and it's supposed to reference immigration and how he is not meant to be there.
Yeah, and he's being forced to like go to Africa, or like they try to sanction him the same way that the Sokovia Accords work, where they're like they try to like trick him into going to another country and doing some jurisdiction over there, and it's like, well, no, you can't just go to another country and enact your version of like martial law. Like you're not, even if you're a god, and even if you're a really nice guy whose morals come from the right place because you were raised right, you don't get to come to Earth and like be a super god and decide what you're going to save and not save. Like you got to be held accountable. I don't know.
I would say I also think the idea that the concept behind multiverse. I absolutely love the idea of multiverses when it's purposefully weaved into the plot, into the story, it makes sense. I don't like it when movies use a multiverse as an excuse to do whatever they want.
So what I was trying to say here is that like just like Richard Donner had this bigger plan for Zod, Zack Snyder had that vision for the Superman storyline to eventually go in the place that we saw at the end of Justice League, the Snyder Cut, which is like Superman has turned evil because of the death of Lois. So like that was always supposed to be the trajectory that we were going on with that storyline. So we just never got to see the full realization of that of what he was trying to say with it. And that's, by the way, not an excuse, because movies need to hold up on their own volition. Every movie needs to stand on its own two legs, because otherwise it's not an excuse to be like, well, I was trying to get something bigger and I was going to say it in the third movie. Like, no, each movie needs to stand up individually. Say what you will about Lord of the Rings or whatever, or Harry Potter, but each movie stands alone as like a singularly great story that has an A, B, C, D, and everything works out. And yes, it's part of an overarching story, But if like one of your things is weak, or like we're not really understanding why Superman would act like that, and you're like, no, don't worry, it's going to pay off. Now that's a gamble. And as we saw from like the Snyderverse, it didn't really pay off, because we're never going to get to see what happened with Superman or why he turned evil.
Sadly. Well, we do know why he turned evil.
Yeah, but we'll never see like what happened, why, how the Joker's teamed up, how Batman's fault, we get the sense that like, Lois is the only thing that can like bring him back from the edge. But if that's the case, like the entire government should be out trying to neutralize Superman. Like the entire government should be stockpiling Krypton to begin with, because he's just one chick away from just destroying the planet.
It just like it like that whole plot line, essentially, it just makes it see, like you said, he's just, the only reason why he doesn't kill everyone is because his lady's there. Otherwise, he would destroy the whole planet just because he could.
You know what's fascinating is I never thought about it like this, and this will be my last thought about it. I've always assumed Superman was good because he was an alien who came from the planet of Krypton, and everyone on Krypton's good. No, that's not it, because they're bad people from Krypton. Zod's bad, like those people are bad. They're dictators. He's good because the Kents were good, and he was raised by the Kents.
Well, he would have
moral fiber.
Well, he would have been good even if he wasn't with the Kents, just because.
How do we know?
His parents were very dutiful. They were very loyal. They were very kind, and they loved their son. And
so, I mean, people who love their kids but die. I mean, look at Bruce Wayne. I mean, a lot of people whose parents die early on, and he never gets to meet them. He hears their books on tape, but he'll never.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if you like in any of the versions where we see Jor-El communicate to any degree with his son, he is so sad, he's so distraught that he cannot be the father that his son deserves in that moment.
God, he landed with the Kents. I mean, think about Uncle Ben and Spider-Man, right? Think about like, sure, but he's dead, and like that's the only thing is like, you can have, there's so many tragic things in like history, or like in comic book history specifically, about parents who are well-intentioned but get murdered, and then the kids enact vengeance, become super villains, and like do all this stuff. Well, Batman's sort of a villain, but I was thinking more like Kick-Ass or something, or like, just something where like it breaks the kid to watch their parents die in front of them, and it makes them into the villain. It's sort of like this weird self-prophecy. It makes them into the villain. But like the death of Uncle Ben, specifically when Spider-Man's about to do something shady, which is let a robber go, and that causes the death of Uncle Ben, and Ben tells him like his parting words, "Great power comes great responsibility." That's like a death that meant something and was a formative moment that made Spider-Man who he was. And it's not Jor-El as much. I mean, Jor-El gives him a bunch of instructions and tells him to not turn back time, but it's really Pa Kent who imparts what it means to be human.
Depending on which version you see him in, he does have actual full-on conversations with his father. He does.
Yeah, of course he does. And like his dad knows his powers.
The thing is his oh, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Oh, have you seen Brightburn? Like Brightburn is another one of these versions of like, what if Superman, but like so it's like, what if Superman, but like his parents were kind of like a little bit shittier, or like they didn't really know what to do with him, and like the kid, he has leanings towards doing something great. What other movies am I thinking of, folks? Really help me out here in the comments, where like the kid can go either way, but then the parents die or someone dies and they just break bad. Like I feel like that's a lot of supervillain stuff, where a character's being touted out as like, he could be the good guy, but then the murder happens in a way that is unjust and they turn evil.
I can't think of anyone. I mean, like obviously, I mean, Brightburn it's obviously it is Superman. Like that's not news.
I guess like there's so many, and I'm like, my mind's blanking. I feel like there's some of the X-Men are like that. Like I feel like maybe a couple of the X-Men. What am I thinking of, guys?
I can't think of any.
Like the Legion. Like what's his name from Legion? Xavier's son. And maybe not necessarily Death, but like or like this new comic book that's gonna be turned into a TV show, Jupiter Rising. No, not the shitty one. The one it's called Jupiter's, whatever it's called. Hold on, Jupiter's, whatever. And there's also like the idea that parents don't have to die. You could just start rebelling against your parents like any teenager would.
Yeah.
Like Lex Luthor is supposed to have a thing with his dad, who's like a super rich tycoon as well, and he's rebelling against him. Jupiter's like
also, depending on which version you watch, as Lex Luthor also blames Superman for him being bald.
Yeah, we'll talk about this next week. What the fuck happened with like Lex Luthor's hair? They never talk about it.
I love it.
So I think we want to wrap it up around here. I think I'm gonna spend some time thinking about what supervillains I'm trying to think of. Who maybe it's all, you know what it's you know what it is, you know what it is, I realize what it is. I'm thinking about it wrong. It's not the death of the parents, it's the death of a wife that turns a lot of people from good to supervillains. It's Mr. Freeze. It's like in some stories it's the Joker. It's like if your wife dies in circumstances, you can break bad and turn evil.
It also happens to Two-Face's character, the White Knight, essentially played by Aaron Eckhart.
And yes, exactly. If your girlfriend dies, you break bad.
Yeah, but he was already a little bit corrupt before that. So,
and yeah. I mean, like it's just that thing where it's like you're teetering on the edge, right? You're trying to be a good guy. You live, you either die a hero, you live long enough to see yourself turn into a villain.
Essentially, they were already bad, but this. I think events like that really kind of, to a certain extent, kind of really gives them an excuse to go the extra mile in terms of
interesting,
people. But yeah, Magneto's. Okay, we're just gonna hang out here, and yeah, Magneto is I don't know if he technically watched her die personally. I have not read any of the X-Men comics.
Sorry, I'm back. I'm sorry, I'm back.
Oh, no worries. But I do know Magneto. I remember in the opening scene of X-Men.
Yes.
Shown that. Oh, that's such a.
Oh my God! Right, Holocaust victim being a motivation. Yeah. That's a really good one. I think it's also like the idea that because isn't that the same thing that Zack Snyder's trying to say? The loss of Lois Lane turns you evil.
And also, and we're just back to Bryan Singer again. I'm
just saying, like, or Zack Snyder was with the one, but
I mean, like, but Magneto, X-Men. He directed X-Men.
Oh, right. I feel like, like the Seeking Vengeance one is just like a huge part of it. That's why they always tell them, like, don't seek vengeance as a superhero, because, like, if you try to do an eye for an eye because they hurt, like, if you're able to, like, wound somebody by killing the girlfriend, then like you're corrupting them. You're able to turn them as bad as you. Punisher was a good one.
And I know in one of the movies, it wasn't Days of Future Past. It wasn't Logan. It was one of the. It was like one of the. I think was it Dark Phoenix. I'm not entirely sure, but it was like one of the recent ones with Michael Fassbender. He watched his wife and daughter die in front.
That was Apocalypse.
Apocalypse, that's right. It was Apocalypse, yeah.
But it didn't even turn him bad. It just like it just turned him back like into Magneto-ish things.
He's like he tries many times to go good, to go straight, and he just keeps going back every single time because humans are dicks to him.
Can I be honest? And this is the last thing I'll say, and this is like some dorky shit I'm about to say right now, so please bear with me. But like the only time I think I've ever written something like a story, like a short story that I feel like really was worth its grain of salt was like a story about a bartender who lives in a world of superheroes, right? And he's like in love with this chick who comes in all the time, but then so does this superhero who doesn't have an alter ego. And the superhero's like kind of like flirting with the chick. And there's like in this universe, if you have sex with a superhero, you get their powers for a short amount of time, or at least that's what people say. And so like this chick starts being like, oh, I really want to fly. So she goes and then she's like telling the bartender how much she likes the dude and stuff. But what it turns out is that you don't actually get the superpowers. The superhero is just able to like manipulate the air, like the air around you and stuff. So it makes it look like you're flying, makes you feel like you have superpowers. But he gets distracted and he accidentally lets the chick fall and she dies. And so that's what turns the bartender from like just this like schmuck into like a super villain. I guess Dr. Horrible was kind of like that. Yeah. So it was like a great story like in high school. And like he was just like, it's sort of like an ascendancy story because he's just a schmuck who works at a bar And then he's like, nah, but like now my life has a purpose, which is like becoming a super genius to bring down this fucking asshole who like didn't even care that he killed a chick by lying to her.
Literally. It's pretty, it's not great. It's not great. Definitely would not be easy for any superhero. That's for damn sure. Guys, we are going to be actually covering both versions of Superman 2, the Donner cut, as well as the Richard Lester, Lester, yes, the Lester version as well.
We'll be discussing the sort of the distractions between the two of them.
Yes.
Oh wait, Zemo and Captain John Walker, both also motivated by the death of people close to them.
Yep, that's also intensely true. Very, very true. Mm-hmm.
Boop boop.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And if you have any questions, comments, whatever it may be, please let us know. But otherwise, we're going to be signing out here in a minute or two. Yeah.
Guys, did you have fun tonight? I feel like I know. I didn't know I had so many hot takes about a character that I found like the definition of like white male, not rage. He's like my white male milk and toast, my white male privilege. I don't know what I think of Superman. He's just boring to me intrinsically. But until I saw the Christopher Reeve one, and now I'm like so in love. He's so good.
I agree with you. It just makes me very sad with the newer versions, but I
throw a coin to your Witcher, throw a coin to your Superman, let him buy back his farm. I'm gonna have to let my dogs out. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Alex, where can people find you when you're not here looking like a gorgeous supervillain-villainess? Yeah.
Girl, I love bread. The hell out of someone. Thank you. I appreciate that. You can find me on Twitter at @real_AlexMac. You can also find me being part of the Call to Action podcast, where we do a whole bunch of stuff for all things Schmodown. And we have a Patreon. We have a whole bunch of stuff. I personally do a whole bunch of stuff regarding the C2A Discord, where we do movie challenges and watch alongs, play games, a whole bunch of stuff. So definitely come hang out.
Yeah. Trying to think. I'll put it in the comments, but there's another really good supervillain story that's from the supervillain POV, and it's beautiful. It's a book. I think it's called Fortress of Solitude, maybe, or something like that. I'll figure it out. I'm VIDEODREW. I usually have a bunch of shows that I do. I'm taking a little bit of a sabbatical because of some personal and some health reasons. So this is basically the show that I'm going to be doing this is like the only show I'm going to be doing for like the next till the end of the month, and then we're going to get back to regular scheduled programming. Usually I do this show, and then on Mondays and Thursdays we do Video Chronic Pop Culture Quiz, and on Sunday nights I do Live in the Dark with VIDEODREW. For right now, it's kind of on pause while I deal with some stuff that won't make me into a supervillain. Don't worry about it. You can. Oh, we forgot to put up the banner. I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/VIDEODREW. I am still doing my study sessions on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So if you sign up as a patron, you can come help me train for a little something called Movie Trivia Schmodown. I know we have the free for all coming up this Saturday. That's gonna be fun. Some people are in it, or maybe not. And no big deal. I'm kind of on a hot streak right now in the Schmodown with my great manager Kaiser and the Force of the Dungeon, but like behind me, got some belt winners there. Got a match. I think I've got a match coming up that you guys should get psyched about. I don't think I'm like supposed to be announcing anything yet because it's not officially announced yet, but there's going to be a big one coming up. A big one. Guys, you're going to be impressed. It might turn me evil. I don't know. So check it out. Check out the Schmodown. Check out the FCL. Sorry, go ahead.
Were you not evil already?
I was not evil. I was goth, but I'm chaotic neutral. There's nothing about me that's been like negative towards another player. So no, I'm not evil. But I will say that there is some stuff coming up that's going to be awesome about it. I feel like I just had one more thing I was going to say about it. If you watch the FCL, which is the first class league that was on Twitch today, someone hit Superman, and the questions were awesome. All the love to PLD. For writing some great questions this week. Check it out. It was Robert Montoya versus Andre Gallegos. And then it was somebody, I'm sorry, I forgot their name, against Vanessa Fitzsimmons. And they all rocked. It was a great, great match. Part of me is almost like, can I go to the FCL? Because I do really well over there. That's my level. So check that out, guys. Also, last thing is please check out, if you have Peacock, check out a show that's called Archie Essentials. It's hosted by your buddy Mark Ellis. I'm a writer for that show. I've written the last couple episodes. There's one coming out today called Essential Stoner Films. They're really funny. It's my first time ever having like a TV writing job, and I'm really proud of it. So check that out. VideoDrew across all socials. And look up in the bird, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Christopher Atkinson's last comment. As I tell my son, we all want to be Superman. We need to with Batman. We all want to be Batman. We need to be Superman, but we are Spider-Man because we fuck up when trying to do right. Fair. You know what?
Spider-Man's dope. I love Spider-Man.
I would argue that I don't think a lot of people want to be Batman because his dead parents, he seems really moody, but I agree with you there. My favorite GIF of all time is him, it's Spider-Man in Homecoming where he goes, come on, Peter, and then he goes, come on, Spider-Man, and it's so beautiful. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We love you. That's not even weird. We just love you. Okay, see you later.